Hi, this is Dr. Arlen Four. I'm the chairman and founder of Activator Methods International. Welcome to Activate Your Practice podcast. And today we're really happy to have a guest that we want to introduce to the chiropractic world. Also, good morning, Dr. Beira. Glad to have you.
And good morning, and thank you so much for having me. I do need to confess that I am really nervous. These podcasts, like radio in the past, back in the day, podcasts are really hard for me, and I get quite nervous with them, so it's very nice to be here with you.
Thank you. And don't be nervous because we're just going to talk. And I sat down with Dr. Beira just a few minutes ago and said, tell me a little bit about yourself, because I'm sure all of you out in podcast land here want to know who's the new Secretary General and what kind of background does he have. Tell us a little bit about first of all, how you started in your professional career.
Thank you. And well, let me start by introducing myself by saying, hi, my name is Brad, and I'm a chiropractor. And everything in my whole career that's brought me to here is because I'm a chiropractor and because of the fundamental beliefs that helped me become a chiropractor in the first place. So I started always as a young kid. I was hands-on with people. I would massage them, and I was looking for physical medicine as a way to take that forward. When I was in 14, 15, 16 years old and we did biology at school, I remember seeing a picture of the brain and thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to do the brain, but I also want to do things with the nerves, muscles, bones, and joints. But also, I really wanted to know why people got sick and what was wrong with them. So I wanted to be a primary diagnostician. So back in the 80s in South Africa, where I studied, the only two professions where you could be a primary diagnostician was the general practitioner and the chiropractor. But with a chiropractor, I could also do diagnostics and then nerves, muscles, bones, and joints. So fast forward that a little bit, 1988, the year that the World Federation of Chiropractic was formed, I was the first applicant as a chiropractic student in South Africa. And in 1989, I was the first registered by alphabet chiropractic student in the country.
In South Africa?
In South Africa.
My goodness. Now, continue on. So what happened after you practiced? How long did you practice then?
So fast forward a little bit. I did my undergrad degree. I saw my first patient as an intern in 1993. At that stage, it took nearly 2 hours to do my case history because we had to stop and then go and see the clinician and get some feedback and come back. That was my first patient. The entire consult took nearly 3 hours, start to finish. Graduated in 1996, went into my private practice soon after that, and practiced all the way through full-time in practice until the end of 2000, at which point I sold my practice, and two chiropractors who were students of mine bought my practice and took it over, and I moved into the second phase of my life.
What's the second phase?
So the second phase was, as a chiropractor, I would have these people come in and they were really tense and they were stressed and they had cervicogenic headaches. They didn't know they were cervicogenic. Their heads were sore and they were getting headaches and migraines. And I started saying, well, how can you be so stressed? Let me come in and help you and tell you about that. And one of those people was a conference organizer. And she said, well, why don't you come and talk at my conference? So I arrive a couple of weeks later at the conference, and I sit with this room of people, and the person before me was an international speaker, and he had a boom mic, and as he walked on stage, he says, song number 3, and I thought, I don't have a boom mic, and I don't have a song. Is anyone going to like me? And so we began talking, and I had some very basic principles. The first was sit up straight. The second was move often. And the third was take a minute. Because the more anxious we get, the shorter a minute feels, and then we get anxious, and we get stressed, and we get hurried, and then we lose perspective, and then we get our muscles tense, and our trapezius muscles and our sternocleidomastoids tighten up, and then we get those headache clusters. So I started speaking on that. And the more I spoke on that, the more people would come in to see me. And some of them would say, well, can you come and talk about stress to my team? And so very soon, not only was I seeing patients in my rooms, but I was doing lifestyle management at companies and in groups. And I would be saying to them, sit up straight, take a break. You'll get computer neck. So now we talk about mobile phone neck, and we talk about, the technologies. But back in the early 90s, we were saying, well, if you sit too long at your desktop, you're going to end up with sore neck. So we did stretching and preventive work.
And then you kind of went into the business world.
That's right. So I had a company approach me, and they said, well, we really like what you do on resilience and stress. Can you do this with our team? I said, yes. That progressed, and my very first job after being a full-time chiropractor was the CEO for a mobile technology company's reverse logistics. So their head office was in Chicago, in Schomburg. Their finances were done in London. The manufacture of their handsets was done in Germany. And I did everything south of Nigeria. So that was my first stint into knowing multiculturally what was going on in the world around me. And you know what? Everywhere I went, the executives had headaches and stress.
Very common. I mean, the people that are running the companies are looking for a way to solve this. Am I correct?
Correct. And so workforce health, when I worked in workforce health, and I'm still new at it, I only started in 1998, the universal construct is, how do we de-stress you? How do you get more mobile? How do you stretch more? How do you relax more during the course of your day? And that's this whole principle of physical literacy. Are you exercising enough? Are you eating enough whole foods? Is your diet balanced? Is your nutrition balanced? Is your lifestyle holistic in a way that not only promotes your health, but prevents some of the things that we see as chiropractors every day?
Then how did you get into studying law?
Well, there's many stories, but I'll tell you the one in hindsight that I think is the most accurate truth. When I started studying chiropractic, 1989, in South Africa, if I wanted to read something, I would have to go to the library, I'd have to write out what I wanted. That would then get posted to an American university, and they would send back via surface mail the journal that I wanted to read. And sometimes it would take 2-3 weeks, sometimes it would never come. But one of the things that always came was David Chapman Smith's chiropractic reports. And I read these in 1991, 1992, 1993. I thought, I want to be like that when I'm big. And so when I started studying law, one of the drivers behind that were those chiropractic reports. And part of studying law was rights, representation, jurisdiction, regulatory support. And so it took 9 years to do my undergraduate degrees. I did my master's in law through Salford University in the UK. I then did a bioethics certification through Georgetown in the United States, in Washington, and I did a medical law.
So you had a varied law degree then?
Correct. So it's nice and diverse, but the majority of my work in law is medical legal support, specifically for practitioners, and representation at legal and national statutory levels.
And I think I said to this you when we were visiting it, you didn't take this job for the money.
No, I took it for the love.
That's important because I think people should know you're well off before you ever came to this particular phase in your life.
Well, if I may share this with you, before I joined World Federation in this role, and I'm very excited, and I'm a little humbled because Richard cast such a big shadow. He's done such amazing work over the last 10 years, and David Chapman Smith did amazing work before that. So I feel quite overwhelmed by this in many ways. But before I applied, I was the Risk and Regulatory Director at PricewaterhouseCoopers in South Africa. And I loved it there. And one of the senior partners said to me one day, "Why are you working?" I said, "Well, because where else do I get to share information with really great people?" And so when the advert came out for this role, I thought, this is the apex of my entire career. I get to work with chiropractors, those in practice, those in regulation, those in public policy, those partners everywhere. The universities, the academic areas, WHO, the legislators, but ultimately to promote the growth of chiropractic and its success at private practice level, with you and your patient level. Because without that, we lose the essence of why we're here.
Well said. And so how do you foresee the growth and legitimacy of chiropractic over the next 5 years?
In my perfect world, and it aligns to the purpose of WFC, one of the things that we really want to focus on is this access. And access is really important. So when we start looking at access, we want access for people to chiropractors and chiropractors to safe markets to practice it. Now, what do I see going forward? I see an improvement in access. I see an improvement in the population's understanding of what we do. And the more people understand what we do, including ourselves, the better we speak about what we do through education, through research, through uplifted standards, through communication, through interdisciplinary relationships, the more people at a private and at a public level will know what we do. And we talk about that at high level, but actually that means when you're out in your community talking to your family and your friends and your community people, when we speak in a language that they understand, we'll have more access, which means there'll be higher utilization. And in some communities, we've got really great utilization. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. You know, one of the things that I see being around for some 60 years is that by the year 2030, half the population in the United States is going to be over the age of 65. And we're going to end up, if we don't take care of these folks, with everybody in a nursing home, which is not possible. So we have to keep mobility in our mind of keeping these people mobile where they can get together with each other and not become lonely and, you know, all the other things that go with it. So I think chiropractic has a great area to practice in and a big support area for the whole world.
Right. So I agree with you absolutely and fundamentally. So if we take from birth, and we take pre-birth even, from conception, the health of the mother and the child through those 9 months, and then there's this concept of physical literacy. We live in a world where if you look around at your chairs and tables, they're all the same height and relatively the same size, but we're all different. So how we learn to integrate with our environments and stay healthy and stay well in a time where we are traditionally more sedentary and not moving as much. We play such a big role in education, such a big role in enabling exercise, such a big role in nutritional education, and then helping where there's dysfunction. So we know, and you know this well, and I'm sure everyone listening knows, that the amount of disability life years for patients with low back pain is the highest amongst any non-communicable condition. That's manageable. And one of the things that we know that works for that is chiropractic care.
I think that's what I was saying, is that I've seen people, because I practiced, you know, enough to have generations come into my practice. And somebody asked me, how did you have such a big return amount of people? And I said, well, some people knew that if they came once a week, they just felt better. And they said, I'm getting older and I don't want to be immobile. And that was worth that to them, to stay mobile and stay moving and, you know, staying active.
Right.
And I think that's what you said. What should we focus on in the profession for the next 5 years?
Well, I think going back to your last question and your comment now, we're our own best kept secret. So I think one of the things that we should really focus on is research, because research sets us apart. It shows that what we do works. And it doesn't matter which philosophy we follow. If we can show that what we do works, we know it works. We just don't communicate it well enough. So educating ourselves, educating our patients, educating our communities, focusing on our role in primary care and focusing on our role in public care. Richard speaks very eloquently about the importance of chiropractic in the interconnectedness, and our vision speaks amongst three things. It says access for all people of all ages and all nations, to evidence-based, person-centric, interprofessional and collaborative care for populations so that they can thrive. So if we think about that, and we think about that vision, that's really where our opportunity is. The more we share, the more we show what we do works in case studies, in research, in conversations, the more we're proud of what we do in a community-based setting, I think it'll raise our profiles.
Well, you know, I can speak to that because as a practitioner for years, I wanted to know, for example, can we adjust an osteoporotic trochanter with an activator? And I think up all the things I want to know, and then I send it off to our research team. And Dr. Ricardo Fujikawa is in Madrid, Spain, and Arantxa Ortega de Muse is his partner. They did the research on this, and they found not only were we able to adjust a osteoporotic bone, but it caused the trabeculum to regrow after so many treatments. And so that got published in Nature. Now, I say all that to say, for years we published in JMPT and Spine and so forth, but the real bang for the buck is in a journal like, you know, Scientific Reports in Nature. And I think we're getting there where, because the last 4 papers we've had have all been in Nature, and I think you'll love this. I got a call from Ohio State University here about 6 months ago, and they said, we'd like to know if we got a big R01 grant for $4 million, and we'd like to know if you'd be involved putting the thrust into rats, because we know you've got experience and you're an expert. And I said, no, I'm not, but I have experts in the team. And so, long story short, we were able to tag along in this big research grant at Ohio State. I think that wouldn't have even been possible years ago, but they read it in the literature.
Right.
And I think that's what you're saying. The more we can do that kind of thing.
Correct. And the more we can share. I think language is such a big thing. We need to sometimes remember that our patients and our community thinks in a different language to how we taught. So speaking in the language to the people that we want to hear, who we want to hear our message, is as important. So interdisciplinary, when we talk to our colleagues on a medical continuum basis, we need to speak a language that we can both listen to and hear. But it's a different language to when we're speaking to our patients. They need to hear a different message. It's the same message, just in a different way. And I think when you say, what do we think I'd like to see in the next 5 years, that we celebrate ourselves a lot more than we have been. Sometimes we're a little timid with promoting what we do.
Well, I think we promote the wrong things. And the things like, when we have a big breakthrough in research, that should hit the major news sources and, let them know, look, what's been discovered. And it's in a peer-reviewed journal, and so it's got to be something to pay attention to.
Absolutely.
Now, what are your key messages for the chiropractors in private practice?
I've been in practice on and off for almost 3 decades, and there's a couple of lessons for me. First is practice is hard. Secondly, practice is lonely. Secondly, practice has a tremendous burden of responsibility on you as the clinician. And as a chiropractor, these are the things that I would suggest. The first is find a friend, find a mentor, speak early, speak often, speak loud, and ask for help. Don't be shy to ask for help. Usually by the time it comes to me as a medical legal person, it's gone too long and the person could have intervened earlier or they could have asked for help earlier. The second is ask for help on your practice management, because we're chiropractors. We're not always great business people. We think we are sometimes, but we're not always. So asking for help from business and practice management groups and technology groups who can help you optimize your practice or reduce your debt or improve your throughput. And then the continuing education piece. Keep learning. We never learn enough. And often I hear people say, well, when are we going to have the students more competent when they come out of college? And I say, well, what are we doing as older chiropractors to mentor them as graduates? Because you don't come out as a good chiropractor. You come out learning, ready to enter your chiropractic journey. Looking back, I look at what I was doing in my 20s, I think, wow. But it's taken 30 years of practice to get that reflection. So doing more mentorship, taking more people under our wings, guiding the older, guiding the younger practitioners, the more experienced guiding the less experienced. Those are the 3 things that I think are fundamental for practice growth.
Go through them again.
Okay, so number 1, ask. Ask early, ask often, ask loud. Find a mentor or more so that you can speak to them, because practice is lonely. The second piece, which I think is really important, is, and I learned this over my years of not being a chiropractor, being in business, is we're not business-minded traditionally. We're practitioners. We care about the outcomes of our patient. We're not always good at tax. We're not always good at financial planning or financial management or optimizing the debt ratio of the equipment we'd like to buy. So get somebody to help you with that. And the third is keep learning. Because as we were discussing earlier, as research comes out with fundamental reinforcement of what we already know, the more we learn, the better we speak. The better we speak, the more confident we become, the safer our practices are.
I'm writing this down because I'm giving a graduation speech at Northeast next weekend. And so I wanted to write that down because I'm making my graduation speech is 10 things that I think that they should know. And one of them will be that, because I had a start on that anyway. And it's so true, because students come out and they just don't know these things. And finding a mentor is absolutely necessary. And I can remember back having mentors in the chiropractic world and how much they helped me, and I can think of different ideas they gave me. What do you tell chiropractors that want to do a leadership role? Because I think my wife says that we have been a failure in the chiropractic profession by not getting training to new people. We haven't trained new leaders. We had a group of old, tough leaders that were really good, but there's been a dearth, a lack of leadership training, and I think this is something that could be talked about.
I think that's a great point, because continuity and succession is so important. And I think about my leaders who my mentors. And one of my mentors was a chap, Adrian Bosman. So Adrian was the president of AECC, and he then went and he started wine farming in Arizona. And after he'd finished wine farming, he went back to becoming a chiropractor in Johannesburg, moved down to a beautiful area called Plettenberg Bay. But Adrian was chairperson of the regional branch. This was 1998. I was the first student graduate elected now onto the National Council for the Chiropractic Association of South Africa. And of course, at 28, I knew everything about everything, as one does. And I went to sit with Adrian, and we had coffee, pretty much like I said, find a mentor. And Adrian said, it's never too far for too short for something important. And so I often say now, and you'll catch me saying it, I'm free that day. But the time between me having that conversation with Adrian and now is 28 years. And it feels like it was yesterday. So that journey of starting into leadership begins early. So if you're interested in getting involved, my second mentor, also a chiropractor, was a gentleman called Mario Milani. He says, you can't make a difference if you're not at the table. So come to the table. And it doesn't have to be the big table. It can be the kiddies table if you prefer. Start with your local branch. Get involved with your local association. Get involved at a state level. Get involved in your community.
It seems today, though, that the younger doctors don't want to join the state associations. They don't want to be, involved in it. Do you have a remedy for that?
Yeah, I see that, and I appreciate that. But one of the big things is when you're not in the community with your professional colleagues, it's lonely, and then you miss the fundamental changes that are going on in the world. So I found in marketing, I was told, if you're over 35 and you don't have a mentor, not a mentee, a mentor, who's under 25, you're missing fundamental shifts in communication. And that's the same with our chiropractic communities. If you're not part of the community and you're not going to regular meetings, you're missing fundamental shifts. You tend to become more isolated. And so my suggestion to people is you should really be joining, being part of your chiropractic community. And some of that is, I don't need anyone to tell me what to do, and you don't. But sometimes you might need to ask somebody what to do. And so an association of like-minded people is priceless. So my suggestion to all the chiropractors in practice listening is connect with each other. Form an association. If you don't like how it's being run, step up and volunteer to change it. And then the question is, how do I change it? And that goes back to the continuing education. We taught to be chiropractors. If you want to learn how to run business, start taking some business courses. Finance for non-financial managers, general management, marketing.
Do you have a call to action for chiropractors listening to this podcast?
That's a great one. I have so many calls to action. We'd probably need about 8 hours to do it. But I think the first one would be get involved. And it's not only get involved with WFC, but I'd love everyone to get involved with WFC. I'd love everyone to be involved in their associations. But get involved with your profession. Be closer to each other. I think sometimes we're not as close to our colleagues as we could be. Sometimes maybe because we think, well, they're going to steal our patients or we're going to steal theirs, and we forget that actually we work for the patient, not the other way around. So my first call to action, and I hope we get a chance to talk about more, is connect with your colleagues, connect with your professional chiropractic peers.
Number two.
Number two is step up. And by step up, what I've learned is that we speak a language that we understand, but often other chiropractors don't understand, and more importantly, other professionals in the healthcare continuum don't understand. We, from a public health perspective, are one group of healthcare professionals within a wide community. So how do we describe what we do? So if I say, you're a chiropractor, so what do you do? Do you have a 1 or 2 minute explanation that's clear, concise, precise, and accurate as to what you do? So I say to people, because people often say, well, we adjust. I say, well, what happens before you adjust? I say, well, before you adjust, you reach a diagnosis, right? Before you reach a diagnosis, you do an examination. Before you do the examination, you're doing education. And then after you've done the adjustment, you're doing rehabilitation, you're doing prevention. And all of those pieces, those dots that you want to join, or the pearls that you'd like to string, are equally important. So my second call to action would be, tell your story really well.
5-minute elevator story.
5-minute elevator. It's a long time in an elevator, 5
Yes,
minutes.
it is. But I mean, that's what salespeople have done for years is, they had that 2 minutes or whatever it was to sell somebody on something. And that's why I've always thought patient lectures were good. We did patient lectures in our office for years where the people would come in on a Monday night and we'd have we'd have hot coffee and whatever it was to, keep them happy. But we'd have 20, 25 people for a lecture, and we found the more we lectured, the better we got at explaining what we did.
Correct. I used to do that for book clubs. On a Tuesday and a Thursday afternoon, I used to go to the book clubs and talk about kids' health and talk about general health. And the moms would ask the questions. And I had to learn not to speak in school language. I had to translate what I'd learned into moms and dads and children language. And I agree with you. The more you speak it, the better you get at it, but also the better your community trusts you because you've been in their homes or they've been in your practice, not as a patient, but as a contemporary in some ways.
Somebody asked me one time, how do you get all the patients you do? And in Minnesota, where I lived, it snowed all winter, so you had to shovel snows and everything. They said, you must have hated it. I said, I never did it. And they said, why? I said, well, I had contracts, for people that cleaned the clinic, parking lots. They did my house first, so I didn't have to shovel snow when I went to the clinic. But I took care of all the tradespeople. Mm-hmm. And if they were hurt, they came to my house, and I took care of them any time of the day and night. And they referred people like crazy because I took care of everybody that I didn't want to do that kind of work for, or work with. And that's how I ended up meeting so many people.
Absolutely. So for me, that's be of service, be available, be kind, and be gentle.
Yes. Now, you start April 1st, is that correct?
Correct. We're T-9, and so Richard and I joke as of today because it's T-9 until I join formally as Secretary General Designate, and it's 103 days, so it's T-104 before Richard's formal retirement, and I take over on the 1st of July.
Well, I can't tell you how happy I am to have the chance to sit down like this and visit with you because I'm much more comfortable. Richard was a good friend and is a good friend, and I'm thinking, boy, they got to replace this guy, and that's going to be a job, and I think you're up to it, and I'm very happy that you were able to be on the podcast so the profession could meet you.
Thank you so much, and I'm free that day, and that day is anytime and anywhere to answer any questions, support any chiropractor ever.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brad Beira. I got that right this time?
You absolutely did.
And so look forward to seeing him a lot in the profession.